All right, so let's take a look at how the average golfer trains. And I mean average, I mean person on the range that's just going out there to hit golf balls to the average weekend player, male or female, it doesn't matter. Golfer gets in their golf cart, drives out to the range, really hasn't done any kind of warm up, hasn't done any stretching, may have had a drink or two to kind of, grease the wheels a little bit, but for the most part, they get out of their car, they run to the range, and they've got 3 clubs in their hand: a wedge, a 7-iron, and a driver. And then they warm up real quick. They rapidly go through their training. They practice the same way too, by the way. Then they go out on the golf course and they struggle. And they wonder why they're struggling. It just doesn't work. My training model that I started years ago started because of the way I trained as a baseball pitcher. Pitchers don't get there and show up and go out in the outfield and start throwing and then 4 balls in, start breaking off sliders to see how their elbow feels. They realize it's a progression that works out over time. And so I started changing the way that golfers practice. Golfers get to the range and they start hitting wedges, usually lob wedge or sand wedge, little half shots. As they go through their bag, they start trying to make little corrections to hit the ball better and better and better. So we're gonna do it differently. So I wanna introduce you to the Mindside training model. And this is very important, and it's very segmented and periodized. And the reason that it is that it helps you from a psychological standpoint and a motor skills standpoint perform better. So when you first get to the golf course that day, whether you do stretching or not, I don't want you to hit balls to get loose. What I want you to do is get loose, whether you can do it putting first or even chipping. Pitching at the pitching green is a great place to get loose. When you get out on the range, I want you to have kind of a little bit of a sweat going. And I don't want you to start with a wedge. I want you to actually start with a 7-iron or an 8-iron and start hitting balls into the range, because the first phase of this model is warm up. We have to allow our body to get loose before we start training it and start competing with it. So we have to take our time to get warmed up. Now during the warm up, I don't want you to have any focus on how you do it or where the ball's going. Just fire the balls out in the range. Seriously. I mean, I know every one of you sitting there thinking right now, oh God, I'm gonna shank every one, I'm gonna hit it fat. No, you won't. You'll actually hit it really well. So take a longer club, fire it out in the range, and as you move and hit balls, don't really get caught up on your technique. I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. And then maybe hit a longer club, maybe a 3-wood or a 5-wood hybrid, hit them out in the range. And once you're loose, now we move into the most important phases, the foundations and the performance side. Foundations. Every athlete in golf has 2 or 3 things that help them mechanically perform the task they're trying to perform. I don't want a golfer out there finding and playing with Band-Aids every day. What I was doing yesterday, I found a solution. Now I'm out there again today and I'm gonna do it again. It doesn't work. That's why those little Band-Aids don't persist very long. So your foundations are something you should have a conversation with your swing coach on. Hey coach, what are the 2 or 3 things that if I do every single day in my training and I execute that to the best of my ability, I'm gonna perform at my best? They'll tell you, hey, you know what? Your most important thing is you've got to get set up right. Your grip and your fundamentals are important, all right? Somebody else may have a swing plane issue. Another person may be the takeaway. Another person may be making sure that they get it, set at the top. Whatever it is, it's up to you and it's unique. That's what makes it brilliant. So I want you to understand what they are. Now, whether you're in a pre-round warm-up or training on a day of practice, you follow this same approach. Warm-up, foundations, and then we're gonna go to performance in a minute. But let's take a little bit more time in foundations. I want you to set up a station, and it might be 10 balls or maybe 10 minutes. And you're gonna work foundation number 1 with the drills that your coach has given you. And you're systematically gonna work through those drills. Now, because your focus is very internal, we're not gonna worry about external outcomes. We can't do both. That's why you've been struggling on the golf course. You're doing both. So I want you to focus specifically, and you might even take a slow pre-swing, then go execute the shot, and then a slow post-swing, and start that whole process over again. 3 swings for every 1 ball hit. That'll help ingrain that motor movement. And the beautiful thing about foundations, after you do number 1, you do number 2. But the beautiful thing is you're ingraining it and not searching for it. You're not looking for it, you're doing it. And regardless of how you feel day to day, you're allowing your body and mind to work itself into its rhythm and routines. Now we're gonna go to the 3rd phase, performance. Performance is competition-based, mimicking what it's like to be on the golf course. And there's 3 stations. 1, in vitro, which means kind of in a controlled environment. So on the range, on the chipping green, on the putting green, where you're gonna mimic what it's like to execute on the golf course. And you gotta put your mind in that setting. Don't just go through the motions, you're wasting time if you do that. Take the time, work and train the way that you would if you're out on the golf course. You may do a drill where you're gonna hit the ball 10 times in a row to the back left pin on the range. Well, can you do it 8 out of 10 times? Can you work your routines and go through the external focus? Now we're gonna trust those internal foundations to execute externally. Then we're gonna go to in vivo, that's out on the golf course. So at sunset, you get the cart, you go out and you hit balls on the course. You may hit 3 or 4 balls off the first tee. Just working on seeing different shots come off the tee. And then the last one is simulation. What are you doing to simulate competition? Like, are you gonna go out and play 9 holes and really focus? Or are you gonna be on your phone and drop extra balls throughout the entire round of golf? That's when we undo the benefits of simulation. Performance training is about mimicking competition. So this training model has had amazing success. Warm-up, foundations, performance. You follow that in every facet of your game, you're gonna improve. But it's gotta be mentally agreed upon by you, bought into, and then executed. If you don't do any of it, then go back to hitting balls with a wedge and getting frustrated on the 5th hole when you lose your swing again. But with this approach, you'll have a much more systematic way, and if you ever lose your swing, you know which foundations to go back to.